Welcome back, everybody. It is September of 2025, and this is episode 81 of What is on My Desk. Well, here we are, everybody, back for another one of my monthly What is on My Desk updates, and I have a lot of progress to show you. I actually managed to complete those three models that I've been working on. The F14, the A6, and the F5 are done. And we're gonna swing over here really quickly. We're gonna take a look at those models. And then I'm also gonna introduce to you the three new kits I'm going to be doing to replace those three. And then you'll also see the progress on the B24, which I just finished doing a live stream on, so there's even more progress than what you're going to see in this video. I just haven't had a chance to do that shot. Now, I'm also most likely not going to have any progress on the three new kits by the time this video comes out. I may have a day or two of work on them, but not enough to warrant, you know, holding off and waiting to update this video with that extra content. So you're not going to see any progress on those kits until the October What's on My Desk. I'm going to start those soon. You'll get to see the progress on those kits. I don't know how long it's going to take to build these. They're all relatively small, but they're all going to involve quite a bit of work to get them to the standard that I want. So let's jump right into this. We'll swing over to the desk. You get to see all this cool content and even a few new items I forgot to show you from a previous month that I came across on my shelves over here and I completely forgot about. So we'll look at that, progress plus new kits. It's going to be a packed video. There are chapters down below, so if you want to jump down there and jump to what you want to see, by all means do that. I'm not going to make you guys force you to sit through all of this if you don't want to see it. So there are chapters. Use them if you want. Let's get into this. My name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And sorry, but just before we jump into the video, I do want to say thank you to everybody out there who is watching. If you haven't yet and you want to, please down below, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All of that will let you know when new videos come out and help drive this channel to more people who would be interested in this type of content. As well, I also have a members section set up. So if you go down below in the description, you'll see a link to a member section. If you do want to help support this channel, you can do that. It's going to give you early access to videos. It's going to give you some really neat perks if you go into the higher levels. No obligation. Please don't feel pressured. If you want to, great. If you don't, just enjoy this content. I do this because I enjoy doing it and I have fun. So let's get into it. Okay, so one of the two new products to show you today is this. It is the AMP-8 Q400. This particular boxing is the -8T, or the air tanker. These were modified by Conair here in Canada into the water bomber version of the -8 and are used in various areas around the world. This particular boxing, from what I can gather online, it's the Eastern Express plastic that AMP reboxes with their own decals and the tank in the belly. And they've done a couple of models. You'll see on the side, they've got the -8-100 that the US Army uses in Korea along the border with North Korea. So that's also an Eastern Express plastic that they've then added their own parts and decals to. So this is something AMP's been doing recently, or not recently, but have been doing repeatedly with Eastern Express plastic. However, these are getting very hard to find due to the conflict that's happening in that area of the world. Eastern Express is a Russian company that made the models. AMP is a Ukrainian company that's reboxing it. And I don't know whether they're getting the plastic from Eastern Express, adding stuff and selling it, or if they actually have access to the molds and they're molding their own and producing their own kits off of Eastern Express's molds. I don't know the ins and outs of it. All I know is the model is Russian designed. This particular company is Ukrainian. So the chances of these being put on the market again anytime soon are slim to none. So I was able to pick up actually 3 of these from Hanance. It was their entire stock that I bought simply because I wanted to have some -8 kits in the stash, and they're hard to find. So I'm not going to go too in depth into this one. I do have a full model review of this one coming out. You'll also see a little later, this is actually one of the models I'm starting. I just got it and I'm starting it. So I'm not going to go through this too deep at all. But suffice it to say, excuse me, it is a really, really nice kit. It comes beautifully packaged in this bubble wrap, this resealable bag. The canopy is a separate little baggie so it doesn't get damaged. And the detail on this is amazing. You know, fuselage wings here on sprue A and B. No windows, but you have decals for the windows, but you do have that clear canopy, so you'll see into the cockpit. Beautifully engraved panel lines. Everything looks right. All the access panels on the wings. Like, whoever did this clearly had access to a Q400 for reference. It looks perfect. I don't see any glaring issues with this thing at first look. Here on sprue C, horizontal stabs, vertical stabs. You actually get a cockpit, floor, instrument panel, rear bulkhead, throttle quadrant, side panels, your nose gears in multiple pieces, nose gear doors, you've got nose gear bay, flap track housings, antennas. There is a lot going on this kit. And then here you get duplicate sprue Ds that include things like the engine cowlings, the main wheel well, the propeller and propeller hub, the fuselage strakes, main doors, landing gear, or main gear pieces, main wheels, nose wheel, and pilot seat. And they're duplicated because you need multiples of every one of these parts. So that's a nice touch. And then you also get this tank, which is specific to this air tanker variant, and I will not be using this for this build. Now, like I said, it's really hard to say. The plastic looks similar, but it also looks just different enough that it might be a separate. It's hard to say. I don't know whether, as I said, AMP has access to Eastern Express's molds and have a copy of the molds and prints their own or makes their own kits, or if this is provided by Eastern Express and AMP just has these made locally. The gray plastic just looks slightly different shade. This is a bit bluer in my opinion than this. This has a bit more like yellow to it. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Without knowing the ins and outs of how the business operates, you know, I really can't say how it's done. But yeah, the kit for a 1/144 scale -8, you get so many parts. It is ridiculous how much is going to go into this kit. And I'm probably going to be starting this in the next couple of days. And I don't even know where to start. There's so much going on in this kit with the amount of pieces you get. It's going to be a lot of work to get, just a lot of fiddly work to get it all done. So we'll see how all that goes. And then the kit instructions themselves are quite nice, full color, but they're printed on just like a standard European size, whatever they're equivalent to the 8.5 by 11. I don't know European paper sizes, so I couldn't tell you exactly what this is, but this is kind of their version of letter-sized paper. I mean, if you compare it to a standard, I don't even think I have a standard. Well, you can see from, like, that's a standard 8.5 by 11, and you can see it's just slightly larger. So it's whatever the European standard paper size is. I mean, it could easily just be printed off at somebody's home, right, with the quality. So it's not horrible. It's got just enough detail for what you need to do. But I mean, it's not like a high gloss special instruction booklet. But I mean, again, that's kind of wasted because you build the model, they end up on a shelf and you never look at them again for the rest of your life. So good instructions is what I'm getting at. A little bit of write-up on the -8, including some aircraft specs. You also get your paint callouts. Pretty generic white, aluminum, tan, light gray, black, and gray. There's no manufacturer references or anything, so you'd have to do a little bit of research. I do plan on referencing against an actual -8 cockpit and an actual -8 landing gear to try to get something close to what it should be. I mean, I have access to the actual paints, but I'm not going to use the actual aircraft paints. But I am going to try to reference against, you know, some of these model paints I have here and try to see if I can find something that is close. I think something like this light gold gray, it's probably close to the landing gear. Anyways, whatever. Either way, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to try to match the model paints to the actual airframe and see if I can come up with an example of paint so that at least I can reference to people down the road, either in the actual model review video when it comes out or in my time-lapse build. I can reference so people are aware of what actual colors are used in the cockpit and on the landing gear. So we'll try my best for that. We'll see. So instructions themselves starts off with the sprue layout, pretty common today in the models. Moving on over here, page 3 is when the construction starts. And you start, as with most aircraft in the cockpit, as I said, you've got floor, rear bulkhead, side panels, throttle quadrant, instrument panel, and seats. Now, it's not the easiest to see on the kit because it's so small, but there's actual detail on the instrument panel and the throttle quadrant. You can see all the little bits of, the hint that there's MDFs or these FMS screens and the throttles and the buttons. And they're not amazing because it's 1/144th, but there's still enough detail that a bit of black wash and dry brushing and all of those will pop and look really good to scale. So I'm going to try to make this cockpit look really nice. Actually, the one I'm building now will be for a client. So I'm going to try my best to make it look good. Step 2 is the nose gear. There's 3 pieces that go together for the actual gear. Then your 2 wheels and your nose gear bay gets assembled again. It's 3 pieces. And then the main gear gets assembled. And you have to make 2, obviously. And again, there's 3 pieces to the main landing gear and then the main wheels. The actual landing gear has a lot more going on up inside. There's like multiple extra pieces that are supposed to exist up in here, but for this sized kit, it doesn't matter. There's a main gear bay that gets built and the gear clips into that. It's enough in scale. Once it's all put together, you're never going to notice that you're missing, another 5 mil of space up inside the cowling. It's not going to show in scale, but for those who know, they know. So moving on to the wings, you glue the wings together. Also of note, there are clear pieces for both the landing lights and the wingtip nav lights, which is impressive in such a small model. Next, you assemble the horizontal and vertical tails. The horizontal tails are actually molded as one piece. So you get top and bottom as one piece, which makes nice scale thicknesses for your leading edge and trailing edge. The other thing I didn't mention, which I should have when I had the plastic out, both the tail, the vertical tail, the rudder is molded to 1/2 and the other side doesn't have the rudder. So when you assemble it, the panel line, the seam line between the 2 halves follows the rudder hinge line, which makes for a nice scale effect, as well as that trailing edge will be thin, scale thickness. It's not going to be you can imagine if you have a thin sheet of plastic and if you add another one, you have a thick, out of scale trailing edge, whereas when this bumps up in here, you have a nice clean edge. You're not going to have any weird thickness or waviness going on. So it's really nice touch that they did that. Same with the wings. The lower wing itself follows the aileron and flap panel line on the bottom. So the trailing edge of the wing is one solid piece for the top wing, and it's a nice scale thickness, and it hides all the detail, all of the nastiness of the seams, and you get really nice crisp detail. So it's a really nice touch. Step 9, you're assembling the fuselage and getting that nose gear and cockpit glued in, as well as the perspex. And again, having the canopy as a full kind of hat like that is nice, because as you clean up the fuselage seams, you're far away from the windows. So there's no chance of like scratching the windows as you clean. You clean up your seams around, you mask off your windows, you paint. It's going to look just like the real plane with the windows properly in place. You're not going to have big, huge panel line seam gaps around the windows. So that's a nice touch. As well, the fin fillet is molded on 1/2 of the fuselage. So again, that edge of that fillet is a scale thickness. It's really well done. Eastern Express did a really good job when they tooled this model to give it lots of like crisp, good detail. Step 10 is the final assembly of everything. The wings, the pylons, or the engine nacelles, the fuselage, the tail, everything gets glued together. Now, luckily, with the way the assembly is set up, you can most likely, I won't know until I start, but looking at the instructions on how everything goes together, it looks like you can leave the main gear, nose gear, and propellers off until the end. So you can assemble everything, get the cowlings on, get everything cleaned up, all your seams, paint everything, then go back after the fact and add your propellers and wheels. And it should make for a much easier build sequence and less chance of snapping things off as you're assembling it. Also of note, the instructions actually show you what part numbers you need for each step, which is a nice touch. So then moving down on to step 11 is all the final kind of the fiddly bits, your gear doors, your flap housings, your rear fuselage strakes, and a number of antennas along the belly. So that's a nice final step, get all those things on. Moving the page, you get the tank. If you do decide to build this as the tanker version, you get that. It also gives you this nice sort of view down of up at the belly, however you want to think of it. And it allows you to orient that tank properly because there's no locating pins because it's sliding over an existing fuselage. So there's no location. So this is allowing you to see where things line up with, say, antennas or power or panel lines, you know, the wings. You can really make sure you get this exactly where it's supposed to be and glue it in place by using this as a guide. Moving on to the schemes. I'm not going to go too in depth with the schemes because there's a lot of them. I think I did the math. I got to count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I think if I remember, there's 9 possible schemes across 6 individual aircraft. In some cases, the same aircraft appears multiple times under different schemes. So there's 9 total schemes across 6 various airframes. And they're all in the same basic scheme, which is the Conair tanker scheme, this black and red kind of swoopy stripe down the fuselage side. They're all effectively the same. Some versions, for example, Tanker 73 here and 74, which were both French aircraft, the tail bullet piece on the top is white, whereas all the other ones that are flown by Conair and Aeroflight, sorry. The Conair and Aeroflight aircraft have a red bullet along the tail, whereas the French one has a white bullet. Other than that, it's the same. And as we'll see here in a second with the decals, all you really have to do is paint the whole airframe white and then paint the wing tips, the tips of the horizontal stabs, and that top of the vertical tail red, or white, depending. That's it. Everything else on this is a decal, which is a really nice, easy touch, and it makes building this really, really nice. So it's oh, I did mention, I mentioned it in the kit review. It hasn't come out yet, but I did record the kit review already. One thing to note if you are looking at this, it shows this as the French Sécurité Civile aircraft, and this is the Conair and Aeroflight aircraft. However, it tells you to put the French roundel on both. That is an error. You do not need to put the French roundel on the Conair and the Aeroflight ones. I'm surprised they missed that. As far as I can tell, that's the only mistake in the entire instructions. I haven't really gone through in depth, but just be aware of that if you are doing this. You do not put the French roundel and that, whatever that is, on the civilian airframes, only on the French government ones. So that covers the instructions. And as I mentioned with the decals, it is a pretty wide-ranging decal for, again, such a small aircraft. 9 schemes over 6 airframes. So you get a lot. And as I commented, all the striping is all decal. The red for the fuselage and the tops of the tails are included as decals. The only other thing I needed to mention, which I haven't verified independently yet, this particular version of the French one with the eagle on the tail, it shows the rear fuselage is gray and the nose is black. That's not included. Apologies for my phone that constantly goes off. That's not included on the decal sheet. So you might have to mask and paint that, but I haven't verified on the internet whether that's accurate or a mistake in the printing. So don't take what I say as the gospel for that particular scheme. I don't know. But for the vast majority of them, excuse me, for the vast majority of schemes, the very minimal painting you need to do, everything's provided as a decal, including things like all your door outlines, your propeller tips, the yellow tips with the leading edge, and the metallic color is a decal. All your windows are the decals are all provided. As well with the cockpit windows, you have the option of using the blacked out window to match the side windows, or just the metal frame so you can look through and see what's going on inside. And that also saves you from having to mask and paint all of that. You just put the decal on and it looks like the metallic window frame, but you can still see in and see the cockpit. So that's a nice touch. As well with the tanker numbers, you get a whole whack of different numbers. I'm just trying to see. So they are individually printed, 544, 543, 542, 540, 390, and 141. But because of how many numbers there are, you could cut and mix and match. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we don't have a 6, 7, or 8. But you have enough that you might be able to mix and match and make various other aircraft if you wanted to do that. You also have all the individual aircraft registrations for the different variants, and then all of your company-specific markings for the various different aircraft under other contracts. So you have, and you all, sorry, the black here are all of your de-icing boots, are as decals as well, so you don't have to mask and paint those. So the good news is with this sheet, you have enough to do every aircraft in those instructions. You might be able to mix and match and make up a couple of other various ones depending on how the research goes. However, you get all of the basic stencils. So if you just paint the aircraft white and put the basic stencils on, you'll have kind of a factory fresh Q400, and then you can buy aftermarket decals and do what you want with aftermarket decals. And this provides you all of your basic stencils, which is also a nice touch. Also of note, that's that eagle that goes on the tail of the one French aircraft for the 10th anniversary scheme. You also get a second set of French roundels, and I haven't quite figured out why you get a second set of French roundels. I can't see any difference between the two of them, so I don't know why, but you do. And then you also get a set of maskings, surprisingly. Cockpit masks and wheel masks. So that's a nice touch for something that's so small. So I'm gonna leave it at that. As I said, I don't wanna be on this for too long. I do have the full review coming out, so you can jump over and look for that if you do wanna see a full-blown review on this kit, especially the deep dive look at the sprues. So let's move on. I have one more product to show you, and then we can jump into model kit progress. So one last quick product to look at before we jump into the update on the actual kits. And it's a bit of a different one. So if you remember a while ago, I talked about the Edward B-17 that I bought, and my plan to do it up as a mailbird, an RCAF mailbird from 168 Squadron. And I'd always planned to put mail bags inside the plane. Some up in the nose, and then kind of in the waist and around the radio operator. So if you look down inside the windows, you would see, it's going to be both the wheels down, so you'll be able to get a good look at it. Doors will be open, and I wanted to make it look like there were mail bags, but where do I get mail bags? And I was thinking of, when I was very, very young, I did a diorama with the Revell B-17 Memphis Belle, and I made like bags and stuff with Kleenex and thread, and you soak it in glue, kind of like a paper mache, and you're able to make it look like things, but it wouldn't look right for mail bags by doing it like that. So I was digging around online and made it a couple of pages back in the Google search results, and I came across this, and this is from a company called West Hill Wagon Works, which actually is one of those garage style manufacturers from England, and they focus on model railways. And during that research, I found out that, and I didn't know this beforehand, O scale is the same as 1/48. O scale trains are 1/48 scale, which opens up a whole world for me actually when it comes to things, because I had no idea that they were the same scale. So anything you can buy for an O scale railway will work in a 1/48 scale diorama. I don't do a lot of dioramas, but still, that meant mail bags, O scale mail bags. And there are 14 of them, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. They're all still here. So these are 3D printed resin. So they come with those little bases where everything's been printed, and you just snap them off. Some of these, you just saw me put in the bag. I think they're tops to some of these, because some of these have like a pinched top, and others just seem like a sack with nothing. And I think those are the different, I think these tops go onto these somehow. Because I got a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I've got 1, 2, I've only got 4 tops. The other ones seem to be missing. But it's fine, because I'll be able to mix and match and put the ones without tops in the back and the ones with tops up front and kind of mix and match to make it look cool. But they come in all these different sizes. So my plan is to put a couple of these small guys, you know, find a way that I can get them to all stand up, make it look like they were piled somewhat neatly, you know, up in the nose. There'll be the little tunnel where people come up from the front, and I can pile these all off onto one side. So it looks like people putting mail up in the nose section, and then I can go to the waist gunner's position and put a bunch of these bigger bags tucked up into corners and stuff like that in the radio operator's position. You know, tuck a couple of these guys up in there, maybe down either side. of the aisle so people can walk down the middle. And then you get into the waist gunner's position, and I can have a pile of them up against the side of the fuselage across from the door, and then a bunch more along the side. That's the nose. So you can have some in the nose, and like I said, you'll have a couple of bags down in the radio operator's position, leaving a tunnel so people can come through. And then down by the, the waist gunners over here, you can have a few more, and then you can put one or two over, by the entrance door. And that way, when you're looking in the plane, you've got mail bags kind of thrown in there. I'll paint them up in like a canvas color, weather them all. I think that's going to look good when you have that inside, and you'll be able to look down inside the nose. Like I said, see bags. It won't be realistic because they're not kind of stacked or piled, and you would definitely have more mail than just 14 bags. If you were doing an actual mail run across the Atlantic, you'd fill that thing with 40 or 50 bags. But this is enough to kind of get the point across. And I might even be able to come up and do some little decals on this. See if I can come up with some sort of like find what a logo for World War II mail bags would have looked like. Canada Post, or I don't even know if it'd be Canada Post at the time. I don't know. I gotta look this up and see if I can print some decals or something to put on these just to busy them up a little bit. But I think that will set that off beautifully, and very excited that I found these. I really want to build that model now just because I think it's going to be really cool, all done up, really heavily weathered, green, the overpainted American markings with British markings, all filled out with mail bags. I think that'd be a really, really, really cool model. I just don't have space to display it. So I kind of have to find a place for that to live outside of my house before I can look into doing that. And just in case you do go down this road, this isn't the bag they came in. This is just a Ziploc bag I'm using. They had a nice package with the resealable end, but I wanted to make sure I keep them in a bit of a smaller bag and keep track of things. So that's that. So that's the edge of the products. You've seen the the Dash 8. You've seen my mail bags of the B-17. Let's jump in and take a look at where we stand with the kits, because I have finished them. So let's take a look at that right now. So here we are to take a look at the progress with the kits. And as I mentioned a little while ago there, I did finish 3 of the kits. The B-24 is still being worked on. I'll pull that out at the end and show that to you. But let's go through the kits I have in front of me because they are completed and I am so excited. As always, they're not perfect. A couple of issues I come across, things I had to kind of cut corners on. It is what it is. As I always state, I'm a 3-foot modeler. So as long as they look good from 3 feet away, I'm more than happy. And that's where these are. So, excuse me. I want to start with kind of what's easy to access and the way I have them stacked here. But we'll start with the F5. And there it is. So again, for those who might not have followed along from the beginning, this is the Kinetic CF5A. I'll pull out the boxes are all in the garbage at this point. They've gone to recycle, but I can at least show you the instructions so you can see it. This is the Freedom Fighter F5A, the F5A, CF5A, and NF5A boxing. It's their kit number 20, aircraft series number 20, for those of you who might want to get the same kit. I did complete it with, what you see is what you get. There's no aftermarket on this at all. This is 100% out of the box. So I did it up with scheme number 5 in the instructions, which is actually the aircraft that lives here in Ottawa at the Canada Aviation and Space Museum. So I've seen this aircraft many, 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 many times. Again, I took a couple of liberties with the decals. It's not exactly as it sits in the museum, and it might not be exactly as it was when it flew in service, but it looks cool. Now, I'm going to caveat me saying this is done with the fact that I still have to paint the lights on all of these, the landing lights, the nav lights, all that kind of stuff. The clear red, clear green lights that I normally do, I don't have the paint. My Tamiya paints have gone goopy on me, and it is very difficult to get accurate painting with those, so I'm going to have to go and source more. I don't think I can get Tamiya paints anymore. I think there are issues with VOC laws in Canada, so I'm going to have to do some research on that. I haven't been to the hobby shop in a couple of months, to be perfectly honest. So I have to dig into that. Either I'll have to get Tamiya if they have it, or look into Vallejo or some other company that makes clear red, clear green, because I do use them. I don't use a lot of it, but I use it quite often. in this manner. So not 100% done, but it's close enough that I'm happy. So this kit, beautiful. It has its build issues. You got to take your time with it. You know, test fit, be prepared to putty and sand. I know where seams are. I can see the seams in the model showing through, but they're close enough with regular panel lines that for those who don't know what they're looking for, it'd be very difficult to find where those model seams are. But yeah, this went together really, really, really nicely. I don't have anything bad to say. Take your time, follow the instructions, plan ahead. You know, if you take the time to look at the instructions, like I said, plan ahead, see where, you know, what you need to do and everything. I have the littlest tiny... Yep. Take your time, look at the instructions, plan ahead, kind of what you need to do, learn where the you know, test fit, where the weaknesses are going to be, where your issues are going to lie, and then take the time to fix those issues before you apply glue. And as you can see, this kit turns out really, really amazing. Now, if I could go back and learn from my mistakes, there's a few things I would have done differently. The kit initially called for photo etch to be put down where all of the slime lights are. I think that's a bit much. I don't think the photo etch would have been too thick for what I was trying to do, and I think just applying the decals to the airframe is more than enough to get the point across. But again, like I said, few things I would have done differently, few things that bother me when I look at this kit, but I'm not going to tell you, and you'll just have to try to figure it out on your own if there's anything that bothers you on the build. But super happy with it, and it's finished. It's going to look really, really good sitting on the shelf. I'm going to have this over by an F18 on the shelf, so pretty cool to have that done. Can't recommend enough. Time lapse will be out soon. I'm going to start releasing the part 2s, excuse me, for these 3, so expect those out soon. Next up, we have the A6. For the old 1980s monogram boxing, this thing turned out really nice. Again, you know, I would have gone back and done things a little differently if I had known. Not a lot I would have done differently on this one, to be perfectly honest. This came out about exactly how I could expect it to. I still have to do the lights. Again, there's red lights on the tail, and there's the red and green nav lights on the wings. Those will get done at some point. I'm going to leave a note on my Millinote tracker there so I can remember I have to come back and do it. She's a little tail heavy. I did put a lot of weight in the nose, so it does, you know, it doesn't take much to tip it onto its ass, but it does sit quite nicely on the nose. You can give it a couple of good, like you can tap it a bit and it, right? So you got to be careful with it. If going back again, if I would have put a bit more in the tail if I had known, but yeah, this thing looks so cool. Super happy with how the paint weathering came out. Decals on this was, oh, I gotta remember what decals these were. I did not use kit decals on this one. I used Fighter Town. Oh, too much stuff going on here. I used Fighter Town decals for this one, and they went down beautifully. I haven't cleaned up at all after completing these kits, so I'm just going through and I gotta clean up a little bit. Yeah, used Fighter Town decals. They went down beautifully, no issues at all. Settled in nice with Solvaset. And then on the bottom, I got the 3 drop tanks, and then I've got the cluster bombs on both wings. Yeah, makes it look nice and heavy, used, you know, all that stuff. So I can't complain. Again, it's the old monogram kit, so you gotta be careful, play with your seams. The one thing I don't like about this kit, and I think I brought it up multiple times, was when I went to do the black wash, it stained. The black wash legitimately stained, and I couldn't get it off, short of stripping the entire model. I left it because luckily Navy aircraft tend to get really dirty when they're in service, but I don't understand why it stained. It shouldn't have. I let the future sit, unless my future is starting to go bad. But I let my future dry for a couple of days before I applied the black. I mean, really, more than a couple of days, because I gloss coated it, then I decaled it, and I only gloss coated around the decals. I didn't re-gloss the entire airframe. So all of this staining that happened on Future that was weeks, if not months old. So I don't know why it stained. It shouldn't have. I've never had that problem before. I think I'm going to have to stop allowing it to dry on the wing and apply it in an even coat. You can also see where I kind of just brushed it on a little bit and I wanted it to dry, and then use the motion of wiping it off to spread it and give it an overall look. But it stained. So I'm going to have to get in the habit of applying an even coat across the wing and then wiping it off relatively quickly and doing multiple layers to build it up. Instead of doing one heavy layer, do multiple thin layers to get the look I'm looking for. So lesson learned. It didn't affect this one as much. Now this one is also darker, so it's harder to tell whether it did do any staining. This was also mostly oil-based paints with Future, while this was water-based paints with Future. So maybe having a water-based paint with a water-based clear coat with a water-based wash at the end caused it, but I've never seen this issue in the past before. So anyways, yeah, one thing to note if you're building this, these speed brakes are not designed to be open. The actuators aren't included as a part, so I ended up making these out of some wire I had, which kind of looks nice because they're aluminum, so they kind of has that metallic shine to them. Might not be 100% accurate, but it looks the part, and that's all I care about. Again, out of the box cockpit, no aftermarket whatsoever, so if you get too close, you kind of start to see it fall apart. But from a distance, it looks really, really good. So I can't complain at all. I'm more than happy with how that turned out. It's going to sit on the shelf beside my EA6B, which is painted up in desert colors, so it looks really cool. Last but not least, the F4 Phantom. And once again, few things I'd like to go back and do differently on this one. Specifically, I forgot to paint the red inside the flaps until much later in the build, and it kind of had issues. I should have pre-painted a lot of the red in here before I got too far, but I didn't really think of it till it was too late. And it's not perfect. You know, if you look at the right angle, you can see the red, but if you look from other angles, it doesn't look quite right. But what are you going to do? Otherwise, this thing turned out beautifully. Caracal decals, the old monogram boxing, bit of work to clean up seams. Yeah, again, you can't go wrong with these monogram kits if you take the time to do it right. There's a few spots where I could have done a bit of a better job, but I did not want this to turn into just, you know, a putty sand repeat kit. I wanted it to go along. I wanted to build it. I wanted it to look good. And it does. It looks really good. I'm really happy with it. Caracal decals went down. It's very clean. I didn't do any weathering. I didn't add any weapons. Being a prototype, especially in this format, with the test flight with the asymmetric wing, it wouldn't have carried anything other than, you know, the minimum it needed. Kit pilots. One is from the F-14 kit. One of the crew members is from the A6 kit because I needed 2 pilots, and this kit only had 1. Only weathering I did was the vents. A bit of black wash down inside the vents to make those pop. And then the pitot tube up here, I made myself with some stretch sprue. I might not be perfect. I think the real one was a little longer. It had some little veins that stuck out. But for, again, a 3-foot look back at it from a distance, it plays the part of having a prototype pitot tube on it. Once I get the D model built and you have it sitting beside the D model, you'll be able to see the difference. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. Really happy again with it. Just enough detail to make it look good. So yeah, can't complain at all. The base is just a standard Michaels base with some clear acrylic rod. Went with the clear acrylic on this one. Think that would have made it look a bit nicer. But yeah, that's basically it. Those are the 3 kits. I'll go grab the B-24 quickly because I don't have it at the desk. So give me 2 seconds. So of course it's a bit of a jump cut, so apologies, but that is the B-24. The wings are not glued on. They can still pop out. They're just in place, so I have it on the shelf. but the wings are glued together, the fuselage is glued together, and literally, the day I'm filming this, I just put the note up about I scheduled the next live stream build, which would have been aired by the time you've seen this. I did it on the 25th, which was kind of weird, actually. I probably shouldn't be filming this particular part this early in the process for the what's on my desk. But I'm already doing all of this, so I might as well just do this. So in reality, how this looked on the first was significantly different than how you're seeing it in the video, because I would have done the work on the live stream. But the live stream, I would have just cleaned up seams on everything, probably glued the front of the cowlings in place, and I'm planning to do some work on the nose, modify the nose for the radar that's going in place, the Belcher Bits radar radome on the nose, so I have to modify the clear part for that. Probably glue that clear part on at the same time, get all that assembled, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Probably finish seams on the off, clean them all up offline, and then get ready for the next live stream, which will probably be masking and all that other fun stuff, gluing on clear pieces and masking and prepping for paint. We're getting there. This is a lot farther behind because I'm doing it on the live build. Oh, I've also got to clean up seams under here. I got to clean up the seams along the bomb bay, as well as the front and the back bulkheads. But a putty in there just to clean up those holes, and I can touch the paint up with some aluminum paint by brush afterwards. You're not going to see much in there, but I want to clean it up a little bit. So when you do kind of see that oblique angle up into there, it doesn't look like a huge gap, because you will see that when it's sitting there. You'll be able to see back, and I don't want it to look like a huge gap. I want it to be closed. So I'm going to clean that up. But anyways, that is the B-24. So if you haven't been following along on the live stream, follow along on the live stream. I do post at least a few days. I try to post a week out the schedule so you guys can actually see it and jump on and watch me do some of this work live instead of always seeing it after the fact. But if you can't make it, you can't make it. I get it. So there will be eventually at the very end of this, I will have inside that live stream. No, I probably won't be doing a time lapse. I will be doing a time lapse of this B-24 build, but only of the work I'm doing offline. So just whatever's not in the live stream, I will have a shorter time lapse made up, so you can watch all that other work I've done on this if you do want to see something about this build that I'm not showing you on the live stream. So everything will eventually be posted live. So on that note, I need to finalize all this, clean up a little bit, and move on. So for you, it'll be just a split second. For me, it could be a couple of days. But next up, I'll introduce the next 3 kits that I will be building on the channel. Well, here we are, folks, back for another quick look at upcoming models. Now, as you've seen, I finished those other 3, and I'm going to be moving on to new kits. The B-24, I'm still going to work on the live stream, as well as what I need to do offline to get the model finished in a timely manner. Now I'm going to introduce the next 3 kits that will be added to the rotation, and the first 2 are kind of a pair. There's the 1/48 scale. It's the Edward Weekend Edition Fokker DR1 and the Albatross D5. A couple of reasons I want picking these. One, they're small, which means they will fit nicely on the limited shelf space I have. 2, I already have 2 World War I models done. I've got a Sopwith Camel and an SE5A. So these kind of go along, right? This is not the Red Baron, but a Triplan and a Sopwith Camel are kind of comparable, and then you've got an SE5A and an Albatross. So kind of 2 German, 2 British rounds out that World War I collection a little bit. As well, this, and to a lesser extent this, but this will involve wood grain on the inside of the fuselage. And that's, in my opinion, a great place for me to start, because it's not very visible in the finished model. If I end up making a complete mess of it, no one's really gonna know. But if I do it well, it's a great way to practice. I have all that area inside to really figure out how I'm gonna pull this off and do wood grain properly, because that B-24 requires wood grain on some of the weapons. Now these 2, nobody on this channel has seen yet. I haven't done a review of them. They haven't been introduced in any what's on my desk because I've had these for a while. I actually purchased these back in 2010. So 15 years ago, I was on a trip to Poland with my wife, and we ended up picking these up at a local hobby shop in Warsaw. And yeah, I think they worked out to like $6 or $7 Canadian to buy these two. So jammed them in my suitcase and brought them home. So I've had them since then. But yeah, actually that's the trip I proposed to my wife on. So I've actually had these models for longer than I've been married. So these are the next two. As I said, they're also, it's going to be a good challenge also because of this green camouflage. It's going to be painted the overall light blue from the belly. I'll paint white, mask the white, paint the light blue on all the other surfaces, and then this upper surface on the top, the two wings and the fuselage, I'm going to try actually streaking the green, similar to how I'll be doing the wood grain, but I'll do that with the green. I'll paint the blue. I'll put a layer of future down to protect that, and then I can streak this green on top, and I can wipe the green off, you know, if I don't like it. But I want to attempt to make a bit of a streaky camouflage like this, and I'll use some references online to find something and hope I can get close. So that's the plan. Use probably 2 different color greens on top of the light blue, and I should be able to pull it off. So there's some challenges in here that I'm looking to have some fun with and push my my skills a little bit in a way that will make the next round of models even better. And the other one I'll be doing is this, the AMP -8 Q400. I'll be doing this up in the Porter scheme as requested by a coworker. So it'll be a commission build for that person, and like I said, be done in Porter. So I still have to source the decals for that. I'll be doing that soon, and we'll get started on this. Now, this one I've already introduced into the What's on My Desk videos a little while ago. I will still do full reviews of all 3 of these kits. They'll be coming out in the near future. So keep your eyes out for that if you want to watch those. But yeah, I'll have a full review on these available soon, so anybody can go in there and really see the ins and outs of these kits. So that introduces all of that. So now you've seen what I finished, what I'm going to start. Now, if I do manage to get any work done on these 3 kits between now and when I actually, you know, edit this video, I will post that next. So this is either going to jump to credits or the outro, or it's going to go into the next segment where you'll see what little progress I've done on that. I still have to do the nav lights and everything, as I commented on these 3 jets, the F5, the A6, and the F14. So I have a little bit of work left to do on those. I'm going to try to get that knocked off before I start anything new. So that's where things stand. Yeah, so that's that. In terms of upcoming videos on the channel, as you will be seeing this on September 1st, later that week on the first weekend in September, I'm heading down to London for the Air Show London. Lineup is looking spectacular at this point. F-22 demo, Super Hornet demo, V-22 flying, the Altus Air Force Base demo team flying, BO-105, potential aerobatics, some L-39s, a Hawker Hunter, E-4B, Nightwatch. Anyways, E-4B, the 747 is going to fly by, and the static ramp is looking really good too. Like I said, C-17, P-8, KC-46, 2 KC-135s, a TC-135, 4 F-16s, 2 F-35s, 2 F-15s. It's just looking amazing. So a C-5, like there's just a ton. So it's gonna be fun. I should have lots of video and pictures and all that fun stuff when that happens. So expect to start seeing that through the end of September, and then I'll have another update in October to tell you guys where we're going from there. So it's going to be a busy couple of weeks. Like I said, I got to wrap this up, start the new kits, air show coming up, on top of all that other fun stuff. So it's going to be fun. There should be a ton of content coming out, so stay tuned for all of that. I want to wrap it up here. I'm sure this has been a long video. I don't have a count now, but I'm assuming we're probably pushing close to an hour with all of the talking I've done. So I'm going to wrap it up, and we will see you all next time.